measurements and all of this.
And he hasn't supplemented his water this year.
That's true. But he also has what I would call above normal roof area and above normal storage capacity.
50,000 gallons.
Yeah, something 50,000 gallons and 6,000 square feet. Maybe I'm not sure about the roof size. Most people don't have that available, but he did. He's great. He's a great advocate for rainwater collection.
What's the real summary difference the Germans are doing? I'm not sure that I'm.
Well, primarily it's low maintenance. I think I'm not sure John is still doing this, but he actually took care of some of the stuff in his tank at one time, and if he's not doing this anymore, I'll find out. But he was actually using a sock to collect the stuff and keep it out of his tank, and that's fine. I mean, you can do that, but my contention was you need to be retired and keep after it. And the Germans developed a system that you can do and go to work. Like when I was in Atlanta and we got 4.5 inches of rain, I didn't need to go clean anything.
Set it and forget it.
It was self-cleaning. I didn't have anything that was impending to create a problem with my water system. I came home and did my normal thing, and I still haven't touched my water system, other than by pulling the water out. I'll get to you just a second. Yes, sir. Did I get your questions all?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Yes, sir.
Why did he not grow algae?
Well, algae requires sunlight.
So he did above ground. That'd be an issue.
You either paint your tank or get a black or a dark green tank. And algae, I haven't really tried this. UV light doesn't kill blue-green algae, but I sort of jokingly say I bet you could go into a health food store and find blue-green algae in a jar. I mean, it's not really gonna, it's not the kind of thing that's really gonna hurt us. Yes, sir.
Do you flush the leaves and stuff into your septic system?
Well, in Germany, because they were doing, that's a good question, in Germany, because they were doing combined sewer outflows, what they were trying to do was pull the rain stream, a portion of the rain stream out of their sewer system. And the reason this is underground is because it's a German graphic. They have very small backyards. Nobody wants to give up their small plot of land for a tank, so they'll bury it. Plus, they've got ground they can dig in, which I don't in my area. I mean, people can put in swimming pools, but it's not the kind of thing you just go dig a hole in. So this is showing it going into the sewer system in a conventional system like mine, where I don't have a public sewage system. I just run it out on the ground like the water would have gone if I hadn't collected it. It just goes to daylight peril. Yes, sir.
I just installed the rainwater system on my place this last spring.
Yes, sir.
And one of the two main reasons I did it is I don't have city water, I'm on a well.
Yeah.
And using well water for irrigation, all the minerals and everything actually wound up killing a lot of my plants because the minerals got stuck to the leaves and they wound up dying.
Talking about your well water was killing the plants because it was so heavily mineralized?
Because of the minerals, right.
Right.
And the other problem that I discovered is my well is 200 feet deep, so it uses quite a bit of electricity to pump that water all the way up.
That's very
So
true.
I installed a rainwater system this spring, did it on my own, put above ground tanks in. The plants love it, and now it only uses 200 watts to pump water instead of 1,500 watts for my well.
Right, well, that's sort of along my lines when I was talking about the guy next to me, that they ought to add rainwater collection. What he said is that his well was 200 feet deep, and to push the water up from 200 feet used a tremendously greater amount of energy than just pumping the water on the surface. That's very true, and he also said that the well water, his plants didn't like it as much. Well, anybody that's lived in the city that's watered their lawn with chlorinated water knows that if you get a comparable amount of rainwater, your grass grows much faster. And it's because, it was sort of an odd concept, but I ran into this in a meeting with the TCEQ one time. They were talking about water quality in a public system. Well, they can't test all the water, because they can't test 3 ounces and say, well, that's 200 million gallons. There's no way to relate that statistically. So what they do is they say, we can test the residual chlorine. And then we say that much chlorine will kill anything. So drink it. And what happens is you spray all that chlorine on your lawn, the first thing it does is attack your lawn, and then after the chlorine's boiled off, then it starts watering the lawn. And that's why your lawn looks better after you've got rainwater. Yes, sir.
What is your tank and his concrete tanks okay?
My tank is a polypropylene. I have a 5,000 gallon, what they call a tuna can. It's only 6.5 feet tall, 12 feet diameter. Concrete tanks, I'm not really up on concrete if you're to be able to answer your question directly, but I do know that there's different compositions of concrete, and there are coatings that you can put on concrete. There are advantages to concrete. I know some people that put in one and they made it their dance floor. So instead of having a water tank to look at, they had a patio, and that's where they had their parties. So concrete has certain advantages, and I would just make sure that if you hire a contractor to do it, because I'm not in town, that's not my deal to work on something like that, that he understands that you're either going to drink it or not drink it, and talk to him about how he's going to keep the hardness of the concrete from soaking. And I had one of my first experiences with Rainwater was a physician who installed a 55,000 gallon tank, and he after a while sort of started worrying about his water quality because he said, I know it's concrete, I know the water is a little acidic, I'm probably going to end up with hard water instead of soft water after a while because I'm not turning that water over fast enough. Where were we? Oh, what, it was your turn? Okay. Okay, I'll go for you, I'll get you next.
I was just wondering, is there a good website that we could use for perhaps designing the system in a rural setting where we're either opted to a well or rainwater collection? Is there a resource I can go to?
Well, that's a little bit hard for me to say, and I'll tell you why, because most of the websites we design are all commercially oriented, so I could give you some commercially oriented websites. If you just want to learn about it, maybe arcsa.org, they have some materials there. That's American Rainwater Catchment Systems Association. They should have some material there. We're trying in ARCSA to get, our mission statement is to educate, so now we're trying to figure out how to do that. And we're coming up with different workshops about how to educate people, because that's part of the problem. The solar industry had a big problem initially because people that got involved in it were all gung-ho, but they were not all as educated as they should have been, and it kind of went through this big burst of interest and then some bad installations, and it caused tainting of the industry. We're trying very hard to not have that happen in rainwater, because the first person that gets sick and reports that it was because of the rainwater is going to be really horrible for the industry. And so we need to work really hard and be diligent about making sure that we do everything we can to not have that happen. Yes, sir.
What's your website?
Rainfilters.com. All right. Yes, ma'am.
I've heard John speak before.
Yes.
He advocates the use of UV sanitizing.
Yes.
What do you do?
Well, what I know is, maybe more than other people, but it's probably not enough to pass any kind of real rigorous test. But what I know is that chlorine kills some things, ozone kills some things, and UV kills some things. So in a public water supply, they may use all three. In a private water supply, when you look at what the UV will kill, and I want to make one comment about UV. You have to keep in mind that UV is about like you laying out to get a tan in the sun. It's how much UV you give, which is based on gallon per minute flow. So it's not just UV bulb. It's UV bulb in terms of the energy, and typically it's portrayed in microjoules, which is the same thing as microwatts per centimeter squared per second. So you're looking for 40. Now that's what NSF does on the ones that are NSF certified. And sometimes you'll see 40,000. Well, that's just the difference between micro and milli. So yes, UV does a good job. I try and get all of the people that I advise to get them to at least the 40 level, because that's what NSF requires of their systems where they give NSF certification. That's National Sanitary Foundation. You can do that by, if the thing is 20 at 16 or 20 at 20, well then it would be 10 at 40. And you can do that by regulating the water flow by buying a flow regulator that you can just put in line, that no matter how high the pressure is, it will only allow a certain number of gallons per minute through the system. And I recommend that if you're on the brink with the size of UV light that you have. Each increment goes up in cost. Anybody else? Well, that's it. Hope you